Like, I always thought that look at Google, how they are innovating, and with due credit to them, I didn't know that here is a company based out of Mumbai which is actually building this great, accurate 3D images, and that's Genesys.
So, we keep talking about the metaverse, but this is actually dealing with
The real world.
the real world, right? You know that in this country, 67% of all urban settlements do not have a master plan. Someone very interestingly said, what identifies you as a nation is your currency, okay, and your map and your boundaries. You imagine that every day when I order something on e-commerce, be it on Flipkart or Amazon or on Zepto or on Blinkit, or I order a taxi on Ola, or I order it on Uber, or I do most of the activities which are now I'm very used to doing. It's all thanks to a map. This can be one of the largest SaaS platforms, content platforms in the world that India can show as an example.
But I think Genesys is also writing the present and the future of India. Sajid, take us through, if I may say so, a game changer for India. Genesys New India Map Stack. Tell us what it is.
So the New India Map Stack is for the first time that a country of our size, which is hopes to be a $5 trillion economy, we are creating layers of map data which are going to impact every city of this country. What does that mean?
Yeah.
It means that we are creating a 3D replica at 5 centimeter level accuracy. We are creating engineering grade data. We are creating very accurate contours and elevation models along with the base map that we all are very familiar with. And this data is going to impact every aspect of the functioning of a city. For the private sector, for utilities, for example, I can plan my infrastructure much better. I can use it to plan my telecom towers better. I can use it to plan my fiber, my transmission lines, my roads. For urban planning, we have such a rich history in mapping in our country. We did the Great Trigonometric Survey more than 150 years back, which was actually the largest mapping exercise ever done by human mankind. It was considered the largest scientific endeavor by human mankind. It was an exercise in geodesy. We helped capture the curvature of the Earth. We established, the highest peak in the planet, which is Mount Everest. So with that kind of legacy in mapping, there was a need as India goes in its next kind of phase of infrastructure development, and as it goes from a 5 trillion, economy onwards, where we're going to spend tens of thousands of crores of investments in infrastructure, when we are going to have the largest urbanization that mankind has ever seen, to create a very accurate geo base of India, what we call the New India Map Stack. And I'm proud to say that many cities and towns are now started adopting our technology for all these aspects that I just spoke about.
Pune is adopting?
Bombay, for example, and in that nature, in fact, some of the marquee cities of India began adopting our technology. So Bombay Municipal Corporation is using this for a 4-year. We've got a 4-year project with them where we are maintaining the digital twin of Bombay. And you're going to see some huge applications coming out from the cities of Bombay. We are doing some exciting work in Pune, which is adopting our technology. We did Ayodhya when the temple was being built. We are doing Varanasi, which is one of the oldest cities in the planet. In fact, we are doing Dharavi, which is the such a dense urban, the densest urban ecosystem which ever exists, right? And we are working with the Adani Group to do the entire redevelopment of that area. So we are doing several marquee projects, and you'll find that in the quarters to come, there is going to be a large adoption of our technology, largely because it is very, very usable. It's also very economical compared to the...
And it's solvable. It solves so much.
Solves problem, right?
Yeah.
So, we keep talking about the metaverse, but this is actually dealing with the
real world.
The real world, right? At 5 centimeter level accuracy.
Yeah.
And not only have we done that, we have created an entire technological stack, which means that we create a geometric twin. We create an interactive way in which how you interact with that twin. You can add all kinds of sensor data or interactive data on top of it. Traffic data I can put on it. CCTV feeds I can put on it. I can take any IoT sensor data and I can overlay on it. So what does that mean? It means that next time it's going to rain a lot, I'm in a position to predict what's going to happen. So lives which are being lost in floods can be stopped. Or next time if there is going to be
any disaster management can be addressed proactively.
Proactively with this technology.
Yeah, this is brilliant. हर दिन का जो है वो life को improve करना.
बिल्कुल.
The water, the air, the network, the traffic, how we live in urban India gets reshaped if people start adopting this map stack.
And in fact, the way you put it, Shradha, you imagine that every day when I order something on e-commerce, be it on Flipkart or Amazon or on Zepto or on Blinkit, or I order a taxi on Ola, or I order it on Uber, or I do most of the activities which are now I'm very used to doing. It's all thanks to a map.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's one application. Or if I'm sitting in my car and going from place A to place B. But imagine a map stack which actually impacts at a far more fundamental level. It does all of this and more.
Yeah.
It impacts the way in which the city functions. It impacts the way your neighborhood functions. It impacts the way your government thinks about you. It impacts the way you can engage with the city itself.
And for me, what's most interesting is you also get to know where the potholes are.
Yes.
Like as accurate and as detailed and as lane-wise.
Right. And I'm proud to say that many cities are now using this technology for this purpose. So we are going to find that the geospatial geotech is going to play a larger role in terms of transformation that is going to happen.
How do you see the adoption from the government? Because government, I feel, should be lapping this up. For them, this would be so.
No, I think the government has realized the need for this technology, and that is manifested in the new geospatial policy. That's manifested in some of the newer initiatives that the government is taking. For example, in land records. So now we did some work in Andhra Pradesh. We're doing work in West Bengal. The data that we already have, content that we already have, we are in a position to offer to the government to start the land reform process immediately.
Wow.
So these are some of the investments that Indian private sector is doing, which is an example of how conducive policy and the needs of India can be met much faster. So what is the new India map stack? It's the first time layers of data which are being created, which help in various activities that impact the lives of an average Indian. Thanks to this government and thanks to the new geospatial policy, for the first time in India, we are allowed now to create highly accurate engineering-grade data for multiple use cases in India.
When I see the 3D images that come, right? Like I always thought that look at Google, how they are innovating, and with due credit to them, I didn't know that here is a company based out of Mumbai, which is actually building this great, accurate 3D images. And that's Genesys. So tell us about that.
So I think that the ability to create 3D data or digital twin data at 5 centimeter level accuracy at scale. We are not talking about doing it for a neighborhood or for a building. You're talking about doing it for entire cities is being done for the first time in India. So we are proud to say that an Indian company is in a position to create data of that kind. In fact, IIT Bombay did a study on our data to see as to whether we are able to sustain that kind of accuracy across cities. And for the first time, we are in a position to do so. So that allows for a huge number of applications, specifically in the areas of infrastructure, utilities, disaster management, which is what we are areas that I think are impacting several people. Even you must have just coming from Bangalore. See the unseasonal floods the rains that are happening in Bangalore, right?
I can only concur because Chennai is flooded and Tiruvannamalai, which actually never saw flood, is getting completely inundated. And you have something in that, right? Like Absolutely. For Pune, you've done.
Absolutely. So, for example, the India Map Stack has a layer called the DSM and DTM, the surface model and the entire application suite that we have made around it, which allows for very accurate flood modeling to be done, which allows for, therefore, authorities to respond much faster than what has been seen today. It was a sad thing to see lives being lost in the recent Delhi floods. So it's an occurrence which is happening on all the cities today, where floods are creating havoc for the citizen in question.
Yeah.
Now, how do you tackle that? Right. So something like what we're doing in the new India Map Stack allows you to tackle it.
Sajid, don't you think that the applications of what you build could be such a game changer for our country. Infrastructures are crunched. There's like everywhere, it looks like we are too many people trying to manage with too limited resources. The practical use of what you built at Genesys can be so empowering for the government to actually plan.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, India is going to see, as I mentioned, the largest urbanization that mankind has ever seen. Even today, the population which are there in Indian cities, around 350, 400 million people, is equal to the size of the United States of America, right? Now, Niti Aayog itself has done a study that out of the 7,900 odd urban settlements, 67% of them do not have a master plan. Now, how are we going to manage this kind of urbanization? How are we going to handle this kind of density of population? We are one of the most densest societies in the world without master planning being done.
Yeah.
So this is a fundamental layer which allows for this kind of planning to be done.
Tell us, what are some of the practical usages that we can do with this?
So, think of the digital twin that we have and think of the conventional way in which cities are being managed. You are in a position, therefore, to now have every department of an urban body being able to engage at 5 centimeter level accuracy in their desktops or on their mobile phones, every possible function that the urban city has to do. So be it from property taxation, that you can sanitize all your property records and see that they are maintained properly, which is the largest source of revenue, or be it from street furniture, how do you manage your street furniture, or from how do you manage your roads better, or how do you manage your traffic better, how do you manage to keep most of the newer roads that urban planning that you're planning to do, how is it that you can do it along with probe data or temporal data to see that all these plannings are done in a more optimal manner, which impacts the lives of every citizen. So this can be done at a micro level, at a neighborhood level, because of the way in which this has been created.
Yeah.
So this is a very practical and not a very expensive way for a city to use a digital infrastructure which can impact the lives of every citizen of the city.
If you had to tell all the automotive companies this is very different about us as compared to the maps that they would be using, what would that be?
So cars are becoming smarter. And you must have heard of ADAS being a technology which is being used in most of the cars. So typically what happens is that for those level of data, you require engineering grade map data. You require much more accurate data, much more highly attributable, much more attribution on those maps. And thanks to the way in which we are building our engineering grade data, thanks to the constellation of sensors that we have built India's largest constellation of sensors. So we are in a position to acquire very highly accurate data at high speeds. So this is something that is of great use to the automotive sector. Imagine the lives which are being lost on our highways today, right? Because of the fact that we are unable to have smarter ways. So we had, a leading light of Indian industry, Cyrus Smith, who lost his life. I mean, it's a tragedy that somebody who, of his stature had to lose his life because of the fact that there was not much accurate data on the highways and on the lane guidance which is there. So when someone like them can use it, you imagine the thousands of people, nobody's talking about them. The thousands of lives which are being lost because of not proper safety data. Forget also the highways. Look at railways. 3,000 people die on the railway tracks in Bombay every year. We talk about one accident where a few hundred people die, and that's very unfortunate and sad. But 3,000 people die every year on the Bombay railway tracks. We have a solution with the India map stack that we have, because we can do very accurate modeling of the railway tracks, which allows for infringement analysis to be done, which allows for most of these accidents these deaths to be avoided.
Wow. Yeah, I can think of every urban problem. There could be a potential, and if nothing else, the efficiency solution through this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that besides the government, even for private sector, this kind of data that we have, for example, when we're combining this level of attribute data, it helps every company which is requiring location intelligence in any form to use our data set. So we have, needless to say, the ability, say, for example, for a utility to plan all its assets in a much more optimal manner. Today, telecom tower radiation is becoming a big issue.
Yes.
We are in a position now to see that because of our line of sight analysis, that utilities can plan their towers much more efficiently. What does that mean? Lesser capital investment for them, less radiation in the cities. So this is a immediate advantage that is there. In our digital twin data, we have the entire NIR or the vegetation index of a city. We have the entire biomass cover, the vegetation layer, which can tell you what is the actual carbon position of every lane of the city.
Wow.
So imagine that. Why would you like to buy an apartment where your carbon footprint is much better than some other lane? It's possible because of the kind of content that we are creating. So I can now, for example, look at the historical traffic patterns in a particular neighborhood. I can look at the carbon footprint of the neighborhood and then say as to what the air quality is going to be. What do we do in terms of improving the livability of that particular area? So the usage of this data is immense. We have to remember, Shradha, that centuries ago, the most important piece of information that shaped human society was a map.
Yeah.
And what we're going to see now, thanks to now advancements in technology, is that there's a resurgence of that. And what we are hoping is to play a role at that.
At a population scale level, like what the DPI did in terms of the transaction that we do.
Absolutely.
But this is in terms of all aspect of life, livelihood, and living life, what it can do for a civic society, for the government, and the interaction that we are having as human beings, as we move around in the city.
Someone very interestingly said, what identifies you as a nation, right? So what identifies you as a nation is your currency, okay, and your map and your boundaries. So now for the first time as an Indian, I'm able to now define my own nation, also be in a position to present my own country in a manner that can impact the lives of several people within the country itself.
But I think Genesys is also writing the present and the future of India, right? Because why shouldn't we have the most accurate mapping of our country as of today?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what you're doing.
That's right. And in fact, I'm proud to say that when we even approached government and policymakers, they were very, very helpful and conducive. We have also an association with the Survey of India, where we are working with them in order to create this map foundational layer. So we believe that this administration and in the user community, including the private sector, we are going to see a huge level of adoption coming in of these kind of technologies, and we're going to see the impact of that in the lives of many people.
I also wanted to talk to you about some of the work that you've done globally. Again, it's a matter of pride, and I want to say this, that an Indian entrepreneur, Indian startup, Genesys is based here, has gone on to do such fantastic work across the world.
Right.
Talk to us about it.
So that's a good question, Shradha, because we actually began in North America as a company. Typically, like most of the tech startups or tech or IT services companies, we were working in markets abroad, leveraging Indian talent, and we had the opportunity to work in almost every continent of the world, from North America, Europe, to the Middle East, Africa, and we have done some amazing work. For example, we have mapped for the United Nations. We worked in Sudan. We have done stellar work in Ghana. We did the Saudi-Kuwait border. We have worked for the TAPI pipeline when we worked in Kandahar, one of the most hostile terrains.
In Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan. We have done mapping of entire United Kingdom many years ago. We have done aerial imaging of 16 cities in Europe. We have done parcel mapping of most of North America. We worked with most of the major global leaders in our field. So what we have done is we have used all of that experience, and we have now kind of distilled it in creating this map platform for India. Because for the first time, we are now allowed to do this in India. So we said, why don't we take all that experience and use it for benefit of our own country?
What would you like to tell all the utility players?
For any utility player who has got all its major investments out on the field, right? You're talking about tens of thousands of crores of equipment, assets lying out on the field. You are now in a position to map that on a much more accurate level, and therefore keep a better inventory. These are for your existing brownfield assets, but for any greenfield planning that has to be done, it is an obvious choice that you need to do it on much more accurate information. A picture speaks 1,000 words. you will be in a position to see where is your fiber going from, where is your transmission line going from, where is your tower being put, and so on and so forth. Let me give you an example. BharatNet program, which is one of the most important digital infrastructure being built for this country. Recently, the government is going to spend 84,000 crores, that is $10 billion, on laying fiber to every village or every gram panchayat in this country. We are proud to say that our technology has the ability to impact efficiencies of almost 10% of the cost of the project.
Wow.
Which means that we are in a position to optimize $1 billion just in the implementation of the BharatNet program. How? Because the moment we create a route survey which is more accurate, we are in a position to plan and design the network much better. And we also have a much more accurate record. Unfortunately, some of the assets which were built, years ago, people don't have an accurate record of it. You have spent thousands of crores of investments in fiber or in infrastructure, which there is no accurate record of. That is money that has to be preserved, investment that has to be preserved. If you're in a position to bring it in an accurate GIS, you are preserving that asset for generations to come. You're in a position to actually also monetize those assets much better. It's a leap of faith, Shradha. We have invested almost 250 crores in this.
Wow.
And you will be happy to note that just the city of Bombay is paying us 150 crores for doing adopting this technology, and so on and so forth. So we are seeing that, imagine this situation, right? That every city spends even 2-3 crores. There are 5,000 urban bodies in this country. There is no homogeneous map provider for these cities. If there is a manner in which these cities are adopting this technology, you are looking at a large addressable market of 10 to 15,000 crores. This can be one of the largest SaaS platforms, content platforms in the world that India can show as an example.
Yeah.
And I don't see any reason why we cannot replicate that success.
People can build applications on top of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, we get now, you see the amount of people who are applying jobs with us. We despite the fact that we are not a very public company, we are getting such amazing talent who want to join our company for the kind of work that we're doing.
How many people are you?
We are, as a company, almost 2,000 people now.
All over the country?
Yes.
Wow. You're also creating good employment.
That's right. And I am in a position to, in fact, generate much more employment because of the content that we have. So take a case in point. For example, in land records, because of the data that we have, we can now offer this platform which can allow thousands of surveyors to work on this data and improve the land record data. So we are creating that fundamental layer that can help.
Wow. Sajid, again, from a very layman perspective, I'm asking you this because I am a Google Map user. What sets Genesys apart?
So, Shradha, mapping is a very wide field. It's as wide a field as financial services. You can be into banking, you can be into insurance, you can be into stockbroking, and so on and so forth. The map stack that we are creating is a comprehensive, map stack, which also addresses, besides the markets like automotive, allowing you to go from place A to place B, or in terms of geocoding or location intelligence. It also allows for utilities to work with this data. It allows for governments to work with this data, because for those applications, they require very accurate data. Now, that accurate data was not being made in this country. And now the new geospatial policy allows that for the private sector to create that kind of data. So we are fundamentally different because we start with the 2D map data, and then we go on to create what we call the India map stack, which is layers of data which are stacked together to create a very exact, precise 5 centimeter level replica of the underlying city.
I want to understand, how does Genesys Map Stack play a role in empowering and bringing transparency in the real estate sector?
So this is of immense benefit to urban planners, to architects, to engineers, to even the regulatory authorities like the urban bodies in question, to developers. So we are in a position to disrupt the way in which the real estate sector can work. So this is not just from a sales and marketing standpoint or from a visualization standpoint, but also for any developer who's planning a site development or for anyone who's planning to give a set of plans to the urban body. We are in a position using our platform to actually tremendously improve the way in which the real estate sector works. We are finding, either with the advent of RERA and with the advent of far more institutionalized peers in the real estate space, there is a need for technology also to keep up.
Yeah.
And we are hoping that we will be that answer in terms of providing that kind of a real estate, technology for solving some of the problems that the sector faces.
Yeah. Sajid, to build this kind of impact, scale, and it requires a lot. It requires a lot of purpose, and it's not been easy. Today, the kind of data that you've created, it requires massive effort. What is the purpose that has kept you at it to build this innovation?
It kind of shows that what an Indian company is capable of doing, and with the right kind of policy environment, you're in a position to really harness some of the efforts that companies like ours, which have been working at a global level, are in a position to manifest it at a local or at an India level. So nothing can impact from a digital infrastructure standpoint, the ability to show your own country or show your own neighborhood or show your own city in a far more accurate manner. Because thousands of crores of investments are going in terms of what in assets or in planning, and these are all of them require a kind of
underlying layer,
right? So what we have done in India very successfully in other areas, be it, for example, in social inclusion, when you look at Aadhaar as an example of what happened in terms of social inclusion from a digital infrastructure standpoint, or when you look at what happened in fintech, when you looked at UPI, which was a game changer. I believe that we can do something similar on the geospatial side, create something so fundamental in nature that it impacts the functioning of every citizen. So we are seeing examples of that, for example, in e-commerce or in transportation, be it Uber, Ola. People have understood what maps can do, or even look at 10-minute deliveries, right?
Yeah.
But imagine the impact of that at a much larger scale.
Yeah.
Imagine that if you're in a position to do that in terms of functioning of every city, imagine all the problems that the average Indian citizen faces. Is there a way in which that can be solved? And that's really the problem that we are trying to solve here.
Wow. This is very inspiring, Sajid. And I have to say that Genesys International is a company that we all in this country have to feel very, very proud of. And what I'm also taking is that there's so many usages, but most fundamental that you said is that to me, what also inspires is saving people's lives.
Right.
And
absolutely.
That's what Genesys can also do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah? Absolutely. And making lives better.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.